Welcome to Little Sutton. This is Little Sutton. I've driven through here a few times, but I've never actually stopped before. And here we have this, and I'll say it's chapel, not church. Open for prayer weekdays 8:30 to 4 p.m. You know what? I don't need a chapel for prayer. You can pray anywhere, anytime, and God still listens to you and hears you. You don't need to come to a special place. What you need is a relationship with Him. So I am more interested in the architecture of this place. I don't know what it's going to be like, but here we go. Look at the windows and you see the usual arches and circles, and even the doorway, there's an archway, and that's very typical of chapels. In we go. I presume that this is a model of the church. It certainly looks like one. There's the door we've just seen, there's the circular window above it, and there's the archways. It's got to be a model of this chapel. The baptismal font by the door. Now, this is almost unique to the English, but they think that you come in through this door to life, and therefore the baptismal font here is a welcome into life, which is, well, what difference does it make, the baptismal font being where it is? But there you go. And I have to just respect that. Now, here we have the pillars and the archways, and it's interesting to see that there is a glass dome up there. The usual flags and the pulpit set off to the side, and here is the choir range and the candles. Now, people write, oh, like candles for prayer. You don't need candles for prayer. God is expecting you to cry out to Him anytime, any day or night, and no candles. And lighting a candle does not mean that God is going to grant you what you want. He'll grant you what you need. Because God does love people, but sometimes He's got ways of showing it that we don't expect. And in a lot of chapels, we have a lectern like this, shaped like an eagle. And we have the stained glass windows. Expect they do communion from this table. It's not an altar. It's a table. Even if they often call it an altar. In Scotland, we don't call these things altars. It's one of the things that we've at least got right. There are the stained glass windows. Christ on the cross, Christ carrying the cross. Looks like in the third window on the right of that section, He's been taken down from the cross. the real thing was much worse than being depicted in these windows. And remember, each of these images all came from the imagination. There was no photography at the time. So the reality was probably, in fact, almost certainly much poorer and much worse than is depicted on these windows. From the left, Moses, King David, and Elijah. Of Christ and the cross. On the left, Silas, Paul, and Timothy. The pews, another shot of the windows. And looking straight up into the dome. I presume this painting is of inside this chapel. There's the lectern that we've just seen, and a painting of the outside of this chapel. Easter bunnies, Easter decorations, more Easter decorations. And exit. Well, that was interesting, but a few thoughts. You know, you can have places such as this chapel that can be as dead as the dodo if the gospel isn't preached there. As the disciples said, we preach Christ and Him crucified. And that's what needs to be preached and people to believe it. I've no idea if that gets preached in this chapel. To me, it's a piece of architecture. But I hope it gets preached here, but it's just a hope. I can't say that with certainty. But I'll leave you with a last look at the chapel.